Welcome to the podcast. Sitting here with Patrick Antrim. Patrick, it's so great to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm excited to dive into our topic today.
Yeah.
And that topic is how confident hiring managers or business owners are when selecting new hires.
Yeah.
And I would love to just kind of start with a question for you about how confident do you think hiring managers really are when selecting new hires?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question because oftentimes we're guessing. And an interview, typically people think about when they're deciding who to meet, in many cases, multiple interviews, they're looking at a resume, right? And they're looking at maybe past experience, what they've done before, and that's what the resume tells us. And then they get into an interview somehow. At some point, they're going to make that decision in an interview. And in that interview, mostly that assessment is around their confidence, their presentation, their performance. And at that point, they're guessing. Because what we don't know then is how somebody reasons or thinks. Because ultimately, once they get into the organization, that reasoning or how they think or how they see the world is what will drive the decisions that they make at work. And so that's how we're able to predict performance.
That's great. So it's not just about the resumes, it's about decisions on how the hiring manager makes. I love that. That's great. Where do you feel that maybe like the risk could come in with those decisions if they don't have the right tools in place?
Well, oftentimes when I said guessing, I mean, we're making gut instincts, and sometimes those are biased, right? And so I've always said that nobody knows a company's business better than the people that are in there doing the work, especially the leaders that are designing the system and leading the teams, and they know already what is unique about their business, and they also know who has already succeeded in the past, right? And what specifically the skills and the tactics and the things that drove the business. Sometimes those people have left the organization, maybe got promoted, moved on, have a life event, and they also know who doesn't work, like what doesn't work in the organization. And so during that interview process, we're working off of intuition from a leader. And it's not necessarily scalable, and it's not necessarily repeatable. But with Picasso Hire, what we're able to do is extract the competencies and success factors from an organization to formulate a unique AI model that can use to match culture fit and assess if the person has the capabilities and the competencies and the success factors for what you expect in that role. And historically, we've not been able to do that. And when we don't do that, we guess or we're using just our intuition, it's costing right now companies 3 to 5 times the annual salary in just expense, cost, not having the right revenue in place. Maybe there was a risk because of the business, alignment wasn't there. When they have a mishire, it's costing a lot, and it takes time to replace that position. So that cost right there is, something that we're aiming to solve for, the mishire as well.
Yeah. You mentioned about AI. I would love to hear more about how you mentioned Picasso, which is your platform, and AI, and how that can leverage into businesses to make it a smoother hiring process for them.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about how it happens now, the workflow is changing. In other words, you advertise for a job, and when that advertisement is seen, somebody's applying for that role, and that when that comes in, it's going into a workflow. And that workflow right now is just collecting resumes and stacking information. What we're doing is we're creating an AI model that when the resume comes in during your current workflow, that we're able to do some analysis to determine, what questions we should ask that candidate specifically for that role. So you may have company-wide values, you may have specific needs of the organization, but the role that you're hiring for in a specific market may have unique, nuanced needs. So we're creating an AI model that is going to do some things in the background to look at the resume coming in and come up with really great questions that now the interviewer can ask to guide a really good interview. And so from a candidate experience, the candidates love that because they feel like, wow, they really did some research and they spent some time to really get some clarity about, my role and my background. And for the hiring manager or the operator or the leader, they get tools and assessment insights that, they would never have had taken the time to do, right? And that's allowing them to see needs and gaps in what we know winning looks like and what the candidate presented. And so now the hiring manager gets interview questions that can listen for certain tell signs or red flags, right? And so if you think about you're hiring for a role that is more technical and more tactical, in other words, they are doing the work, and then the candidate that came in is more a leader and has managed the work. So Picasso Hire will help you guide constructive interview questions to determine, is this person set up to succeed in what we actually need as success, right? And it's as if you hired an agency to do this for you for every candidate that comes through the system. That's I think what's most fascinating.
That's very fascinating. I guess with the change, of course, AI is becoming such a big, it's becoming really
way of work.
Way of work. And I just want to hear more about with companies that are still introducing AI with their hiring needs and just in their business. What would you say on that?
Yeah. So let me back it up a little bit and talk about what is a company. A company is nothing more than a collection of people. So our belief is that as companies grow in the future, they're going to be, the organizational chart is going to change. And as that changes, the workflows changes with it. And when the workflow changes, that means there's different skills that are going to be required. So like Picasso Hire is going to help assess a lot of those changes that may come down the road as well. But if you look back in history, a company was, going back to way back from Rockefeller days, which you had steel and railroads and these types of things going on. It was, the leverage was your ability to put financial resources together, get capital, get investors, and scale. And then all of a sudden, then a company became, financial resources and physical resources. And what I mean by that is buildings. Think of simple analogy like Blockbuster Video. More locations meant more growth, more income. So people used to say, how big is your company, to assess if you're a big company or a good company or not, with the amount of people. Because you had a lot of locations, so you had a lot of human bodies running these locations. And that was growth, that was scale. And then comes, you're thinking, well, I got all these properties across the country now, and I have all these people running around running them. I got to figure out how to manage them. And that came the third piece, which was human resources. And now it's how do we get leverage through our people? And what's interesting about resources is resources get depleted over time. And that's why I don't like to talk about human capital or talent management or talent strategy as human resources, because our goal is to increase the value of individuals. AI allows us to do that. So it's no longer what can AI do for you, it's what can you become with AI. Historically, CEOs had access to teams of people, an assistant, a finance, consultants, attorneys. They're making decisions because they have all the right information. Now, Picasso Hire is giving every hiring manager, I don't care if you're on-site, regional manager, a property manager, talent manager of the whole organization, Picasso Hire gives you an insight report as if you had a team around you to help you understand how people think. And it's really interesting, and that's why I key into the word acquisition, and I'll talk specifically about the apartment industry, real estate, is they acquire properties on a daily, weekly. Their job is to look for properties and grow the business, so more locations. And in that acquisition strategy, they have a lot of respect for acquisitions. Now, I said acquisition, so talent acquisition and also real estate acquisition. And what that means is they'll spend $50,000 on attorney fees to figure out the right structure, lender fees, right? They're looking at due diligence reports, looking at mechanicals in the building and the air conditioning units and the physical plants. They'll fly across the country, go look at the property, inspect contracts, inspect leases. They want to figure out all the information to make a right acquisition.
Yeah.
And they invest in that intel because they know it matters. They know that when I do that, the investors respect them and give them more money when they want to do investments. They also know it's a leading indicator for the ability to get yield out of a portfolio or an investment. They also know fiduciarily it's the right thing to do if you're the one deciding on which investment to make. But when it comes to talent acquisition, we're spending more money on balloons than we are on talent acquisition.
Yeah.
Because they're thinking human resources, they're thinking expense, they're thinking recruiting, they're thinking cost, and they're thinking scarcity, and they're rushing the process. And so I want every executive leader that runs a business to know that their job is to build a great business. And bringing great people into that business means understanding how to attract them and then also how to select them once they're in front of you.
Right.
But right now, nobody's really been trained on this. They're not cognitive scientists. And the technology wasn't available in the last 30 years to be able to do this at scale. And now with like Picasso AI, we can do this on every candidate that comes in, right? Typically, if they're hiring a CEO, they'll do this kind of work in the background check, and they'll look at this, personality tests and all these things.
Yeah.
But they don't do it for every candidate that comes in because they get 300 candidates on every application. What we do, every candidate that comes in gets this level of intelligence, so these executives and business leaders that are bringing people into their company can make smarter hiring decisions. And ultimately, that is the leverage. That's that fourth leverage. I talked about financial resources, physical resources, the buildings, and then human resources. That fourth one is being able to use technology and AI as leverage to make smarter decisions. It's what can I become as a company when I have this type of intelligence, and what can those people do inside the company once I figure out how to build that winning team. Yeah. Because that is recruiting. You're when you are winning, that's the best way to recruit, is because people want to work on winning teams. But if you're selecting the wrong people, the winners leave. Nobody wants to work with a negative, non-performer, complainer that isn't matched with the competencies. So we have to look at who's the problem. Was it the employee that was matched up with the wrong competency, or did we select the wrong person and put them in a role that they weren't ready for? Yeah. So that is where I think the greatest opportunity is, regardless of what happens in AI, regardless of what happens in technology. If you believe people will be part of companies and that you will need to bring in the right people into those companies, then this will be the single most important skill set of a leader. It's not something for HR. Now, HR, yes, this is the kind of air cover that goes around all the current things that they're doing, but we've never had decision intelligence to make the smart decisions with people.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. There's a few things that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
One, I want to dive into the business impact, as you mentioned, talking about winning and leaders. And then, but also before we go down that, talking about Picasso and just, I was researching a little bit about Picasso, and I love the slogan about hire better and faster, making confident decisions. And you talk about confident decisions in that talk just now. And I think that's what these leaders are wanting to key in is confident candidates, confident leaders in their organization. And of course, there's a lot of wanting to have new candidates and new leaders, but we want to make sure we're not chasing just anyone that comes in. And so I would love to know your thoughts about don't chase, but lead in your leadership, if you could kind of highlight in that.
I want you to visualize a feather floating right here. Mm-hmm. And if that feather was floating right there and I went to grab it and I put massive force to grab it, the force of me approaching it will push it away. So we need to kind of catch the candidates. So a lot of what we do in our brand and our business and the way that we engage and lead as leaders allows us to build healthy organizations. And if you're a healthy organization, people will want to work on teams where people have a plan and they're going places and they're really taking care of stuff. Yeah. But in marketing, recruitment is marketing. And I think the resources are not allocated that way. And I also believe that great marketing repels as much as it attracts. If you think about a great sports team, they don't rush the process. And they go where winning happens. So they observe their talent pool in another company. So they're watching college sports and they're saying, I like the way this player approaches the game. I like the way that they fundamentally make decisions. I like the way that they work with others, and they're selecting and they're projecting a future. Will they fit our competency, what we believe winning looks like in our organization? Yeah. And they're willing to have a bench, and that bench doesn't need to be on payroll. I've managed people for many, many years. And I've had friendships, relationships where we worked competing companies. But I also was on a mission to know where the portfolio was going. And at one moment in time, when we were in a position to go national and take over 13 different properties, I had already spent and invested time with people outside of my own payroll to know when I needed them, draft them at that moment and say, I want to bring you in because I spent that time. So people rush the process. And what happens is, this is a way, really Nectar Flow solves this through line is, the way it works now is Nectar Flow can get your training and your hiring to work together. What that means is, right now, if you look at an organization, oftentimes each one of those disciplines is overcompensating for the other. So training is trying to train people that may not have been selected properly with the right competencies. So they're like, okay, we got to find another role for you. We got to move you to another department. And they're overcompensating. That costs money, a lot of money. And they're just not tracking the cost of that. The other piece of it is, if you're not developing leaders, becoming that winning organization and road mapping plans for people, then you don't have the development going on in the organization. Then you rush the hiring because somebody leaves, you don't have a bench and you don't have anybody there. So now you're rushing the selection process and you're in this loop of constant waste of money. But back to my fiduciary responsibility, if we want to elevate the professional management of these businesses and organizations, it's your job to figure this out. And especially if you're taking care of a business on behalf of investors, you're consciously deciding to let money leave the organization if you don't solve this problem.
Yeah.
Right? Now, most people will talk about it being a problem, but they're not solution aware of how to solve it. And that's why we want to do what we're doing now, is help people understand that when we now have the ability to help protect mishires coming in,
Yeah.
but hire smarter, faster on the way in. So this chasing concept is really interesting question, because when we get into, let's just say this is a job interview, and let's say you're a candidate and I'm an employer, who's doing the choosing? A lot of people have a conscious bias thinking that the employer is selecting, but oftentimes the candidate, if they're winners
Yeah.
and they have options and they don't need the job, but they want to be part of your organization, they're the ones choosing.
Right.
And so we have to start thinking about that candidate experience and how to productively move people through that process.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. And going back to the financial aspect, if a company, of course, is hiring the right candidate with maybe Picasso or the right tools, then it can have a good benefit of their cost for their business and just a good benefit for their company, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're taking $1 million problems and taking them down to $60,000 problems.
Yeah.
Right. I think most CEOs, most CFOs recognize, like, yes, I'm in for that.
Right.
They're in for that.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, I would love to, for those that are listening, I would love to hear more about just improving confidence this year and just in future years. What can they take from our conversation today that can benefit for their business and their interview process?
Yeah, I think the main thing is, number one, nobody knows their business better than them. And inside that business, the people running the department know the needs of the department even better than the head recruiter at the corporate office. And so if you can get to a point where you can develop the competencies and success factors, like with Picasso, we extract that, then you now have a benchmark or a winning rate, right? Where all the candidates that come in, they get matched to that. But ultimately, it's getting to the interview. And it's getting to the interview where you're hiring a human. So you need to have a human experience. You need to be able to speak to them and get them talking about how they went about solving problems in the past, how they see the world, what do they see about the disciplines and the activities of how they worked with others, all the stuff that they know about interviews. But being able to, in that interview, improve that communication. Because right now, it's just intimidation. The employer is trying to figure out, are they telling me the truth? Are they going to be like the three bad hires we had, right? Or they're a little scared.
Yeah.
And the candidates has probably a single flow of income, and they're depending entirely on this conversation. And they're just trying to be confident and read it in such a way that they're trying to anticipate, what do they need to hear for me to get selected? And it's this dynamic that if we can just get to how this person thinks by asking them the right questions, then we'll unlock like a natural flow state in that conversation where everybody feels comfortable and we're just expressing, how work happens. And when we know how the way that they approach their work, that gets translated into how they'll reason once you hire them. And this reasoning stuff comes from experience. So in the interview, you want to get them talking about their experience, because when they talk about their experience, that reveals their belief systems, the assumptions that they make, that reveals what they believe is necessary, any conditionality. You were listening for if this, then that. Well, if I ask you about a lease up of an apartment building, a new startup, a new business launching, a new apartment being developed, and you worked for your first job in this building, let's call it Alfie Concord Apartments. And that was your first job, and you were in Phoenix, and for the period of time where you worked, they gave away 3 months free rent because of the supply-demand conditions. unique moment in time, not always like that, but that's your experience. So now let's fast forward 18 months from now, and you've been in this market operating, and when people come in to rent, you always say, by the way, we have a special. If you move in by Tuesday, we'll give you 3 months off your rent. So in your mind, you believe that's what is necessary in some cases to close a deal, right? In the market. Well, now 18 months later, you're in a new role or hiring for a new role. And in the interview, we're talking about what was challenging about the lease up. And now you're talking about, well, if I had 4 months free rent, we could have leased to 95%. We only got to 93%. What we're trying to understand in that comment, it's not right or wrong. It's just your experience.
Yeah.
And if we know how you see the world or what your experience is or your beliefs are,
Yeah.
all right, then we can ask better questions in that interview. Like, what would you do if you were renting and there were no concessions? How would you go about leasing, right? So now we have a very different, and you may come up with 9 reasons that rents are too high and you have to have concessions or people won't move. So you have assumptions in that comment. You have conditions in that comment. Well, we can figure all that out before they make the hiring decision and the financial risk. Most people figure it out after they're in the organization. And the good companies will be nice and figure it out and then overcompensate by training you. Oh, let's make you an accountant, or let's, move it around. And they even further the expense of having the selection wrong.
Yeah. So are you having AI interview the candidate before they talk to the hiring manager, or is this after?
Well, that's a really great question. There's a lot of different ways people can use it. Like if you had a mass scale, you could pre-screen.
Okay.
So it's up to the employer, right? It's whatever they do now. But what we use it as an assessment, right? So it is aiding into getting all the information ready for a great interview with those great interview questions that are unique specifically to the competencies and the success factors of the specific role, matched with the resume coming in. So now every person, every regional manager, every property manager, every business leader has like a team of people saying, we did all this really great due diligence like they do on assets.
Yeah.
And ask these questions in here so we can determine if this is the right fit. But we're getting them to the human interview better. And then at the human interview, depending on how good people want to do this, some companies are good enough with that. They're like, that's it. We're good. That's 100 times better than what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Now, if you really, really, really want to get it right, then you would go to an assessment. And that's where they engage in our motivational models, and where we can determine how they prioritize, what they motivate, and also in our assessment models where it's the reasoning and how they think.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very fascinating because it shows that you can work with AI and the human at the same time and not just replacing one or another.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can even highlight more about that.
We don't believe in AI. AI never makes a decision. Humans do, the people do, the leaders do, because they know their business and they know their needs. But you have to get to the interview first.
Yeah.
We do clear the clutter. We get there. We get a lot of the admin work out, all that kind of stuff, managed communications, all those things. But we're not selling software and we're not selling AI. We're talking about bringing smarter hiring decisions to companies.
And I also like that you customize to a business, because as you mentioned, every business is unique and different how they hire. And so I think that's just very...
One of those ways we do that is multi-location management. So typically in a larger enterprise, they'll have enterprise, I guess, HR software. And it does everything from all the workflow stuff. But doesn't ever do the selection piece very well, right? Does all the admin and all the background screening and all the stuff. that is required. That is not what we're doing. It will do a lot of those things if they don't have those systems, but the companies that do have those big scalable systems, typically if they have 30 locations or 200 locations, they will not invest in that system at each location because each location has unique needs of hiring. And so they end up with this bottleneck, right? Hiring is a bottleneck because the technology wasn't built to manage all these different locations. We've built Picasso Hire, whereas you can almost have an enterprise hiring system at every location. So you can manage candidates at each location and get corporate governance over all your locations if you're the hiring manager. And why that's important is because you may want to provision teams to only have access to one market or one thing, and you're not sending, PDFs and documents around in emails, managing multiple interviews and those types of things. So we're clearing all that clutter for these companies, making it easy.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So they can focus on an interview.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a lot of property management companies out there that have multiple locations. So that is such a benefit for them to know about. I guess any final thoughts, those that are listening, and then just would love to hear how we can get connected with Picasso Hire, or how those out there that can get connected with your team and learn more about it.
Yeah, I think the main thing is, keeping it simple. And the reality is you have to collect the right people, and that's selection. And you just need to get them working effectively so you can get to your business goals. That's the goal. We're not here for software. We're not here for technology. We're not here for AI. We're here to understand that talent is the last real competitive advantage in a business, specifically in an AI world where everything is being commoditized. So if you're using an AI software that is enterprise grade, it was built to sell AI and recruiting solutions to everyone. We're bringing a custom AI model, a custom selection model for specifically even not just their company as customizations you talked about, but to the role. And that hasn't ever been done before. So that's the decision intelligence that people need to be thinking about, is if they've thought or have thought that hiring has been challenged, has been costly, has been a pain point, they need to just sit back and rest and say, it's not them. It's just we haven't been doing this new intelligence layer. It hasn't existed before. We've been guessing.
Yeah.
So you don't need to change your current workflow. You can use whatever systems you have already invested in, and you can bring in an intelligence layer that you can, at scale, assess every candidate that comes in as if you hired an agency to do that. And we've never been able to do that before. And that's the exciting part. In terms of how to get in touch with us, Nectarflow is a brand that's bringing this AI solution to this one problem here. And we believe this is a problem many companies have. We're obsessing on it. We're super excited because we believe, we just believe in AI being a great opportunity for humanity.
Yeah.
And companies are some of the greatest contributors to our world, our communities. They create jobs, they bring people together, they reinvest, and payroll dollars go up and economy grows. So we're excited about supporting the economics there. But beyond that, there are companies that come to us with just the hiring solution, and that's Picasso Hire. That's our solution. And you can go to picassohire.com specifically if that's all you needed and that's all that you wanted. But Nectarflow is here to support the businesses in bringing these technologies forward.
Awesome. This has been so great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It gets me so excited for the just new companies and new improvements out there with AI and hiring and the confidence behind it. So look forward to doing more of these. And thank you so much, Patrick, for taking the time to share everything.
Yeah. Thank you for having me in. Thanks.
Thank you.